Tattoo artists of Reddit. Who was your worst tattoo virgin? Had a customer that wanted a little watermelon slice on his thigh. Cool. 5-10 minutes nice and easy for a first tattoo. Nope. On the third line I hear a weird little low-pitched moan. Looked up and his head flipped back and the rest of him followed. When he woke up on the floor to 3 guys trying to pull him back up, he said something along the lines of WTF, why are you touching me? That's gay. Been like 3-4 years since then and he still hasn't come back to get it finished. LMAO. WTF, why are you touching me? That's gay. If guys helping another guy up is gay, I can only guess this guy has some slight insecurities. Girl comes in to get her ex-boyfriend's name tattooed as a tramp stamp. Comes in with friends and proceeds to scream throughout the process of doing the outline, and she leaves with a half outline of her ex's name. Kid who wanted to get a full sleeve as his first ever tattoo. Convinced him to get a smaller tattoo for his first ever. He proceeded to throw up after. Now this sounds like an exaggeration. 5 seconds. I made a similar mistake for my first tattoo. Got a half sleeve on my upper arm. After the line work was done, I had to take a break. Didn't puke, though. The rest, a complex, solid black design, I had to have broken up into a few separate sessions because it hurt far more than I thought it would. Fortunately, my artist was a son. I dated a tattoo artist for a couple years and spent a good chunk of time at the shop. One time, a girl we knew from school came in for a large tattoo on her ribs. I think it was flowers. Anyway, everything is set up. She's stenciled and laying on the chair just chatting and waiting. As soon as the needle hits her skin, she starts screaming bloody murder, moaning and begging him to stop. So he stops, shocked, and she tells him, in her normal voice, to ignore her and keep going. Screaming fit proceeds. Every so often he'd stop to check she was alright and she'd respond in a normal, cheerful tone that she's excited to see how it turns out, etc. Needle hits skin. Back to screaming like she's being eaten by a pack of wolves. I watched a couple people walk in the shop and turn and walk right back out. I'm surprised cops didn't show up. Anyway, I think he only got the outlines and some shading done before he couldn't deal with it anymore and said something about scheduling another session because he had another client coming in. She never came back to get it finished. So weird. This type of story seems to be recurring in this thread. It's like people have a split personality when it comes to pain or something. A friend who had never had a tattoo before wanted one on her ankle and was adamant about that. I told her several times that the ankle is a very not fun location and asked her if maybe she'd prefer the shoulder instead. She insisted on the ankle. Okay then. The moment the needle touched her she hollered, "You sure you want to keep going?" I asked. She said yes. That was the loudest appointment I ever had, but to her credit she made it through. Oh wow, reading this thread is bringing up some repressed client memories. My worst one by far, though, was about 5 years ago when I was apprenticing in a college town. This girl came in with her boyfriend for a traditional butterfly above her elbow. I was still super new, so it took me way longer than it should have, maybe 2 hours. I lay her down on her stomach with her arm bent at her side. This is relevant later. Anyway, we start tattooing and within maybe 10 minutes she starts getting a string of texts from her freshman friends, telling her they're essentially ousting her from their group and they don't want her to contact them again. Super mean stuff. Obviously she's upset, as she's relating all this to her BF. She starts crying, then full on sobbing. I asked her if she wanted to stop, but she insisted on me continuing, and I felt too awkward to counter her. She continued to sob on and off for probably another hour, while I just kept plugging away at this dumb little tattoo. At this point she had cried so much that her tears had gathered where her arm was pressed against the massage table and had started to spill over into my lap. So I'm feeling uncomfortable as heck, and now also damp. Then, as I'm within 30 minutes or so of finishing, she begins whimpering, then moaning, loudly. At one point she tells the BF this is more intense than anal and I wanted to die. As soon as I finished and checked her out, my co-workers, who had all been waiting on me to close, were like, what the actual frick was going on? And why did you keep going? But in the moment, all I could think was to finish the tattoo ASAP. To her credit, she came back a year later and told me she had been too embarrassed to come back but loved the butterfly and wanted another tattoo from me. Her second session was pleasant and without incident. LOL, you deserve a medal for sitting through all of that. What a 180. I'm far too late to this thread for my story, but I hope somebody else enjoys it. This older lady, maybe late 50s early 60s, comes to our shop. She's quite timid as she approaches the front desk and I say hello and ask what we can do for her. We'll call her Ab. Ab, I've never had a tattoo before. Me. That's fine. It's not as scary as you think. What was it you wanted doing? Ab, well, my boyfriend is finally letting me have a tattoo. Me. 0.0. Ab, but I wanted just something small and out the way, so if I change my mind I don't have to look at it too often. Me. Okay, fair enough. What was it you wanted? Ab, I want Andy's B written on my vagina. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. We didn't do the tattoo. It was either some horribly abusive partner that wanted her branded with his name, or some BDSM kink that I didn't consent to being part of. Frick that. Fricking you. This girl's first tattoo, and my first paying customer. I tattooed people for free during my apprenticeship. She wants a star outline on the side of her heel below the ankle. She's a bit nervous, so I allow 2 of her friends to come in the room with us. I start the tattoo and immediately she jerks away super hard. I warn her not to do that and try to relax. We start again and she jerks her foot. The 2 lines I've done now look like crap and I'm already freaking out inside. I get her 2 friends to help hold down her foot and she continues to jerk around and at one point kicks me right in the jaw. Needless to say, her tattoo looked like crap and I was crestfallen. I called my mentor after work crying that I ruined my first tattoo on a client and she kicked me in the face, to which he said, wait, what? Nah, frick that. It's not your fault. I'll see you tomorrow at work. Been tattooing 13 years now and still love every minute. Got way crazier stories under my belt since that kick in the face. You are not allowed to end with got way crazier stories under my belt. Please share some more. I was the tattoo virgin. Went in for my first piece. 5+ hours. Was obviously nervous and I'm not that great with needles, but as soon as we started I was like, oh, this is way easier than I built it up to be. I was feeling the pain, but knew I'd be able to commit. About 20 minutes later, I start to feel really dizzy. My vision is going, so I sit up. She stops immediately, and she's talking to me but I can barely hear her. The world is closing in, and it's only getting worse. I think she asks if I'd like to go to the bathroom, but I know I will make it 1.5 steps before passing out if I stand up. I can't tell her this because my brain is not working and speech is not an option. And then I start gagging. My artist is scrambling for something to help me, but she is not fast enough. I vomit into my mask, my hands, all over my dress, into my hair, onto the floor. It's a mess. I'm a mess. I immediately feel better and go to the bathroom to clean up whilst this poor artist is wiping up the rest. I come back, still stinking of vomit. I offer to take my dress off and literally sit there in my underwear while she finishes. She completes the tattoo like a champion. She sits with me in vomit aura for another 5 hours. I am mortified and make sure I tip extra for the inconvenience. But the tat is stunning, so it was worth every minute. I'm bringing a bucket next time, just in case. Had a 19-year-old lad in the studio. He wanted Laura in large letters on his forearm. I took my time to quiz him. Turns out Laura was his sweetheart. I also spent a long time explaining that tattoos are for life, and girlfriends come and go. He remained adamant, and clearly explained that if I didn't do it, he had a friend with a tattoo gun who would do it. So I did it, wrapped it up and explained aftercare. As he left I checked the time. Great, 22 minutes to my next client. 22 minutes later my client turned up on perfect time, followed less than a minute later by Mr. Loverboy. Apparently he'd met Laura at the park who instantly dumped him for being so freaking stupid. It would appear she wasn't as in love with him as he assumed. 22 minutes from tattoo to requesting a cover up. That's how I expect 100% of all GFBF tattoo stories to end up. Have to. I did piercings, but my friend was an artist at the shop we worked at. Had a girl come in, no ink, no piercings. She wanted to get, no joke, daddy's girl as a tramp stamp. She was in tears moments into the tattoo, like hysterical crap. She suffered through altogether probably 25 minutes, and walked out with girl right above her waistline. 10/10 hilarious. The other was a guy. He had a few small tats on his arms, nothing crazy. He was also one of the I watch UFC and wear tap out, don't frick with me types. He wanted a pretty large tribal chest piece, collarbone to collarbone. He was told that we recommended a couple of sessions. Them shoots is going to hurt, and this is a lot of outline and a lot of shading. He insisted no, he could sit. He ended up fainting toward the end of his outline. I worked there for roughly a year after and he never came back to get it finished. He tapped out. One shop I worked at, we had a couple come in on the day we did $100 2" by 2" tattoos. They both were getting these small triceratops outline tattoos behind their ears. Nothing too crazy or detailed, so maybe about 15 minutes each in the chair at most. The guy is losing his mind. He's hyperventilating, laughing, jumping up and down and yelling questions at all of us. Visually very nervous. He tells one of our apprentices that this is his first tattoo and keeps asking them how bad it hurts over and over again. The owner went into the back and grabbed an ammonia packet, worried the guy would pass out the second needle touched skin. Turns out it was this couple's first date. He had told her he was impulsive and she tried to call his bluff and suggested they get matching tattoos. To his credit, he got the tattoo and didn't pass out. Paid for them both too. They later got married due to a series of escalating dares. Not a tattoo artist, but my friend tells this story, had to share here. So he went to the pharmacy to get some prescription filled in North Carolina. They tell him it's going to take about 1 hour to fill and to come back later. So he walks out of the strip mall and the next place over is a tattoo shop. He goes in and asks for a random tattoo. They tell him it's going to take about 15 minutes to do the drawing and about 30 to tattoo it on him. He asks what they can do right now instantly, and they tell him they can pierce his nipples. Within 1 hour he gets both nips pierced, a pretty sweet tattoo and his prescription filled all in one regular Tuesday afternoon. Now that's productive. Not the worst client, but just an unfortunate event. The apprentice at my shop, who had only been tattooing for a little under a year, was tattooing this girl's wrist recently. Her first tattoo, the word undefeated. Gets the tattoo. It goes smoothly. She likes it. Walks to the lobby. Shows her dad. He likes it. Walks back to get bandaged up. Gets bandaged. They walk back to the counter. As he's explaining aftercare, she blacks out. Falls back, hits her head on a giant painting hanging on the wall. An Ed Hardy original. The painting falls. Glass breaks. He runs over, picks her up and is checking the back of her head. Realizes a giant piece of glass had punctured her shoulder trap. EMT comes. Tell her she needs stitches. They end up having to take her to the emergency room where she got 6 stitches. The next week the girl brought him a giant tub of cookies. She wasn't the worst, but it was an incredibly unfortunate experience for the both of them. His first time having someone pass out and her being defeated. She can claim the tattoo is undefeated. It took her out. Buckle up. This one might get a bit long. In around 1999-2000, I had only been tattooing for about a year or so. I had a lady in her 40s come in for her first tattoo. A walk-in butterfly on her left shoulder blade. She was a server at a sketchy strip club in town and was pretty haggard. She also had her 16-year-old son with her. We get about 20 minutes into what should be about a 45-minute tattoo, and she says she needs a break. Now I know better than to leave a client alone when they need a break, but I was pretty green, so I stepped out for a smoke. When I came back in, she was standing up, bent 90 degrees forward at the waist, with her face on my workstation. As I get closer, I see that she's standing in a puddle of her own urine and is passed out standing up. She's leaning forward with enough weight on her face to keep her from falling to the floor. Her son is frozen in his chair and doesn't say a word. Fortunately, she's wearing a skirt, so she didn't get her clothes all soaked. I get her conscious again and she says she needs to go to the bathroom to clean up. During the approximately 20 minutes she's in the bathroom, I mopped my floor a couple times and got everything good to go if she was still feeling up to finishing. Again, now I just tell her to come back another day, but I was pretty new. I just wanted to finish, get paid, and get her the heck out. Anyway, after 20 minutes or so, she comes out of the bathroom and says, "Don't worry, I cleaned the bathroom." Frick. What did she do to the bathroom that would require her to clean it? She says she wants to finish the tattoo, so she sits, and I start working again. About 5 minutes in, I notice something on the outside of her knee. I look again and see that it's a little chunk of crap. Not on the front of the kneecap, but on the side. I'm thinking, how does that even happen? As I look away from the turd, I see her 16-year-old son just noticed it too. He looked at me, and then at the floor for the remainder of the tattoo. I didn't know if I should say anything about the poop, or just finish the tattoo, get her out of there, and proceed to drown myself in a bottle to try and kill the memory. I decide not to say anything, partially to save her kid more embarrassment. Anyway, I wrap it up, get paid, get her out of there, and proceed to the bathroom to see what she did to it. The bathroom had a urinal and 2 separate stalls. There were circular crap smears over the entire floor, and crappy toilet paper in both toilets. Like she blew up right inside the door and got down on her knees in a desperate attempt to clean it up. That must have been how she got the turd on the knee. I'm still curious how it ended up on the outside of the knee. I'm still curious if she ever noticed it there, and I'm still amazed that I didn't quit tattooing right then and there. Feel terrible for that kid. Had someone come in asking if they can bring their emotional support animal. Usually this is kind of iffy because it could be a sanitation risk, but we made exemptions for good dogs. Found out the emotional support animal was a 3-foot-long snake. Turned down instantly. So many people passing out, high on painkillers before their appointment, taking continuous videos and posting how inked they were with their new ankle beach wave, or even one person tipping me in expired Subway coupons. Just be cool and calm while getting tattooed and everything will go smoothly. When I went to get my very first tattoo, there was a girl ahead of me getting her first as well. I was already a little nervous because I didn't know what to expect, but I started out small so I didn't think it could be that bad. Apparently the girl ahead of me had the same thought, but her pain tolerance was almost non-existent. She ended up throwing up absolutely everywhere. I stood there in horror, not only because of the bath but because I was next. I thought, is that going to be me? Turns out I have a pretty high pain tolerance, at least in comparison to her. Same here. I get into the chair, have this annoying irritating feeling for 20 seconds, then the endorphins kick in and I get super relaxed. It would have been an addiction for me if I wasn't so poor, haha. Not an artist, but I'm a receptionist at a pretty popular tattoo shop in my town. I've seen quite a few people who had no business getting tattooed, but by far my favorite was this one guy who wanted to get some script tattooed behind his ear. He had come in before to get priced out, but absolutely refused to make an appointment and drop a deposit. He came back a few days later as a walk-in, so we squeezed him in that day. He was a mess getting done, lol. Shaking, sweating and basically crying in the chair. The tattoo itself took maybe 15 minutes. Well, the reason why this dude refused to put a deposit down was because he planned on getting tatted and leaving without paying. As soon as the artist put Saniderm on his tattoo, he jumped up out of the chair and bolted for the front door, then promptly passed out as he ran through the lobby. Lomfeo. He ended up breaking his nose as he hit the ground, and we called the cops. The best part was watching this dude cry like a baby because he was just a few days from getting out of the military and local PD notified his command. Best shift ever. Close second was the newly turned 18-year-old girl who legitimately wanted a dong tramp stamp tattooed on her. Yes, she was sober. No, we didn't tattoo her. Both idiots, but at least she had a chance of growing out of hers. Mine was a young lady who wanted a semicolon tattoo on her wrist. Maybe 1 INX 2 inches, black ink, no preference on font, easy enough, and I had the stencil all ready to go before she even came in. I was expecting a 15-minute job max, so I gave her a pretty cheap quote. Anyway, she turns up for her apt and she's very nervous. I do my normal, it's about as painful as a cat scratch, nothing to panic about speech, and she informs me that she's already taken a strong painkiller and would like the specialist numbing spray as well. UHH. Okay, that's an extra £30. She agrees. Spray goes on. Stencil goes on. We're ready. I don't even make contact with her skin before she starts making a very loud, high-pitched whine. I try and calm her down again and tell her that she can have a few minutes to get her courage up if she wants, but 99% of the time, the anxiety of getting a tattoo is usually worse than actually getting one. Bearing in mind, the parlor at the time had 4 other artists, all with customers, all staring at her. She just kept putting it off. She'd say okay, I'd turn on the gun, and she'd freak out again. After an hour I told her that I was expecting another client, and she could reschedule if she wanted. She just bolts out the door, didn't even pay for the numbing spray. To this day, I can't quite believe how dramatic she made the whole thing. Yeah, I agree on the anticipation part. I've been tattooed like 8 times and to this day would get just a tinge hyped before, but the second it starts and just chatting with the artist or a friend or on my phone or whatnot, that 5 minutes before there was a rush. Edit. Thanks for the love. By far my most popular post. Ranker even picked this thread up for an article. I'll take this one. I had a client who got a Jesus fish with Greek letters on his chest. I put the stencil on. He looks down, says looks good, and we do the tattoo. Guy sits like a champ through his entire first tattoo. I finish up after about 45 minutes. He checks it out in the mirror and immediately goes pale, starts to sweat and sits down. Dude looks at me and says it's backwards, all shook. I look at his tattoo, look at him on the floor, look at the mirror and tell the guy I'm gonna take a photo of it for you to see, because you don't know how mirrors work. A couple minutes go by as I'm handing the dude paper towels. The guy stands up all quick and tries to play it off like he was just messing with me, even though for a minute there was a corpse on my studio floor. Not an artist, just a customer, but I overheard this. I'm sitting waiting for my artist to finish up working on her current client, just leafing through flashes and other artwork. I notice one of the other artists was putting a large rose skull stencil on a guy. He finished placing the stencil and asked his client if it was okay. The client quite seriously said, "Wow, that was much easier and quicker than I thought it was going to be. No pain at all." His artist just stared at him, but I laughed assuming he was joking. He gave me a "why the frick are you laughing" look. He actually meant it. There's a few different ways you can go with worst. Is worst most reactive? Is worst most picky and unreasonable? I've been pretty lucky in the grand scheme of things. My worst most reactive annoying client was this dude who was very clearly a drug addict. He came in, wanted a simple tribal tattoo on his stomach. I saw sure no problem, but he starts haggling me about the price. At first it was $400. Then he said no more than $200. We finally settled on $300 after about 20 minutes of back and forth. I get all set up. We start the tattoo. Within a minute he says he needs to stand up. That's he's in too much pain and needs to walk around. He walks around for about 2 or 3 minutes, then lays back down, gets tattooed for another couple minutes, and then same thing. He does this constantly throughout the entire tattoo. During this time he was constantly scratching his head, twitching all over and complaining loudly. But the worst part wasn't the fact that this 2-hour tattoo turned into almost 4 hours. The worst was that he kept going out for smoke breaks, but kept only taking 2 or 3 puffs, putting the cherry out and then putting the smoke back in his pocket. So all I could smell the entire time was musty cigs. It was freaking disgusting. The cigarettes smelled old. If you've ever smelled old cigs, you know what I'm talking about. He also kept putting it in the pocket that was right beside my face. No chance I'm haggling with somebody who's about to permanently mark my body. I once had a client who called me up panicking because he thought his skin was melting off. I used Saniderm, which of course ended up with liquid on the inside as is normal. Dude calls me screaming on the phone, terrified. "Bro, what did you do? My skin is melting." I had to calm him down and explain what Saniderm is. I asked my tattoo artist about the shop and he went into this story about how this older lady came in to get her feet done. She did fine, but afterward she was hitting on him cause she just assumed he was into feet now. He said she straddled him and offered him sex or something. It's not the worst, but I love this one. At the expense of my very good client, I generally use this story to help noobs ease into my chair more comfortably. So it was his first and I'm getting my stencil prepped. He was so nervous. He was basically white. Kept asking if he was good. Yeah, he was okay, I guess. Place the stencil on him and ask him to take a look. He looks at his arm and immediately passes out in the chair, lol. He's sliding out of the chair. We get him back up and he comes to. He got over it, eventually, and has his sleeve. I was getting lettering and dude finally got to my spine. He asked me how I was doing. I said a little lightheaded, but keep going. He said nope, we are stopping for 15 minutes. I guess he's had a bunch of people pass out on him. This thread helped me make up my mind. I'm gonna get the tattoo I should have gotten 30 years ago with my best friend, but I wasn't sure I'd still want it when I was old. Well, I'm old, and I wish I had done it. Time to do it. He died less than a year later. R.I.P. Jurgen. Good for you. I hope it goes well and Jurgen finds a way to let you know he's stoked you finally did it. A couple of years ago, I had a girl come in for what was supposed to be a simple little seahorse. It was only about 4-5 inches long. This was going to be her first tattoo, and she told me that she had a severe fear of blood, that she always passed out whenever she sees blood or even thinks she's going to see blood. After that, I should have never agreed to tattoo her, but she said that she wanted to do this so that she could get over her phobia. Well, the outline itself should have taken me about 20 minutes or so, but it took me well over an hour and a half to get through. This girl passed out about a dozen times, and after each time, I would have to revive her, get her some water, hold cold compresses to her forehead and back of the neck, elevate her feet and get her calmed down. And no, you can't just keep working on someone after they pass out. And I couldn't just leave her with a couple of random lines that would look awful. I had to finish the outline. The worst part was that I had gotten what I think was food poisoning the night before, so I was just going to do this little tattoo and then go home and get some rest because I still felt awful. I didn't think I'd ever get that outline done. I feel I might have been up there on someone's worst tattoo virgins. I was visiting family in Hawaii and decided to finally pull the trigger on getting a tattoo. It's a tribal armband but with a bit of a video game reference thrown in there. Aren't I original? Anyways, being freshly out of college and 21 at the time, I get S-faced the entire night before with family alone because I liked being drunk. Wake up the next morning, day scheduled for the tattoo. Feeling amazing because I was 21 and never got a hangover. Was going to take about 1.5 hours to do the tattoo. No biggie. My father was in the room cringing the whole time, but the pain really wasn't bad. Only stung when it was on the more tender part of the inner arm. Anyways, 45 minutes in, my stomach grumbles. I have the whiskey shoots. Bad. I ask the dude if I can use the bathroom. He's cool and I head in there. I proceed to wreck that place with a stench so foul. I came out, and all of the other artists and their customers had left the building. Smaller studio, and my guy and father were just laughing their asses off. I had to sit the next hour and 15 minutes, had to extend the time because you can't have a giggly artist sticking you. In pure embarrassment. Still have the tat. Still have the shame. Would be kinda weird if you didn't still have the tat NGL. Not an artist, but I overheard this interaction when I was waiting to get a tattoo in Bali. The client was a first timer who was there with her mom. To paraphrase, her request was something along the lines of, "Yeah, so I don't really know what I want but I'm thinking something really cool and artsy. I like animals but it doesn't have to be an animal. Just something really cool that kind of captures me as a person. But like whatever you think. I trust you." The artist, who was a pretty no-nonsense Ukrainian woman, basically said, "Okay, how about you think about it and come back when you know what you want. Bye bye." A Ukrainian artist in Indonesia conducting business in English. What a fascinating world. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.